So before we break out, I want to spend a few minutes wondering, why does this matter? Why does it matter to understand all of the puzzles that I just laid out and many more that we are going to find along the way in this course? It matters because many people are frustrated by the little progress that we make collectively in the world about improving the condition of lives of the poorest people in the world. It seems that many things have been tried and they're not really working. And we think that it's a combination of three I's: ideology, ignorance, and inertia. The ideology is the fact that governments start programs with a very simple, relatively cartoonish view of what it is the problems, what problems the poor face. And then based on this ideology, they launched a program in complete ignorance of how people live their life on the ground. And once something is started, once a program is started, it creates a constituency of people whose job is to run it, and therefore it has this great power of inertia. So this is very frustrating, because when you're working in the field, you're thinking all of these policies that are just misguided and misthought, and this is like a huge waste of money and more importantly, a huge waste of lives while the problems are not being fixed. But in a sense, it's encouraging. Because in a sense, it's saying, well, there is no deep conspiracy. There is no huge impossibility. It's just that we need to get our acts together to think about the problems the poor face in a slightly more rigorous, more humble way. And once we understand the problem better, we'll be able to fix them better. So this is really the objective of this class, is to go through this exercise together over a number of issues that we have already thought about, and to, if possible, give you the tools to continue thinking about these questions yourself, about the many, many questions as well that we will not have time to address. So here's the type of question we will try to answer in this class. Is extreme poverty a thing of the past, or is it still with us? Will it still be with us forever? Are the poor always hungry? How do we make schools work better for the poorest children? How do we deal with the disease burden? What's the impact of the disease burden on people's productivity and quality of life? Is microfinance invaluable, or is it overrated? Should we leave economic development entirely to market and have government stay in the background, or is there a role for government? This and many more questions is what we are going to address in the class. In addition, what we'll hopefully learn is a little more than just the substance that we are going to cover in the class. What we are trying to teach you in this course is also an attitude, and is also a way of looking at the world that you will be able to take with you and to use when you encounter any problems, in particular any problems that have to do with the way the poor live. You will spend a lot of time thinking about how poor people live and how they make decisions and why they're making the decisions they are making and not something else. We are going to learn how we must understand that in order to understand the proper policy design. What implications this decision-making of the poor people and the constraints they face affects the way we should think about designing public programs. We're going to be looking at what policies have been effective, what policies have been ineffective, and how to get better at designing effective policies. But there is no way to understand why we know that some policies have worked and others have not worked without understanding how to analyze what's effective. So we're going to spend a lot of time on the method of how do we know what works, how do we know what doesn't work, and why. We're also going to spend a lot of time thinking about how to analyze how people choose. So hopefully you will be able to cover a number of topics and understand why people choose the number of children they have, for example, in the way that they make this choice. But then, having gone through the logic of this type of decisions, you'll be able to apply it to many other problems that we won't have time to cover in the class, or that we don't yet know, so that we all can be part of this process of understanding better how people live, and therefore what constraints they face, and how we can try and lift those constraints.